Gamification is, what I define as the use of game attributes to drive game-like behavior in a non-game context, right? So, and how you use, what are these gaming attributes? Some of those are the game mechanics and game dynamics. So these are the building blocks, the nitty-gritty thing, the appointment dynamic, the level up dynamic. All those things are pieces of tools that you can use to drive a certain action, a certain behavior, in your players. And so the difference between game mechanics and game dynamic is that game mechanics is usually a static point of view, and game dynamic are more temporal. So these are kind of, these two are less of a distinction between the two. So I mean, some you could string a bunch of game mechanics together and turn them into a game dynamic. So because how they roll out in time, right? For example, like points, badges are example like essentially a kind of game mechanics, right? It's a feedback system, but how you when do you give the badge to people? That's a game dynamic. For example, appointment dynamic. You say at a certain time you do certain thing at a certain place, then you get certain rewards, right? So that's the appointment dynamic that farm will leverage really well. So that depends on the organization, right? So different organizations have different agenda, different purpose for running, launching a community. Some launch a community to cut support costs. Some launch it to drive, word of mouth or marketing and sales, and some, launch a community to crowdsource for ideas and product improvement. So those are different purpose, right? And for different purpose, you want to have different action, right? For a support type of community, the action that you want to drive are you want people to ask questions and you want people to answer questions. Right? So that's the kind of thing that you want to drive. So you gamify those actions, and so I find it kind of interesting. Gamification is sort of buzzword, but a lot of people kind of don't think about it in a behavioral perspective, right? So when you want to say gamification, you must first ask yourself what action, what behavior you're trying to gamify, right? So for example, a sales and marketing community, the action that you want to gamify is perhaps word of mouth, or sharing content, or creation of viral content, and things of that sort, right? So there's a different set of action that you would gamify for a support community, right? And it's different if you have a community that is built to, for example, like for crowdsource for ideas for product improvement, right? Co-development, co-creation of value. So that's for that kind of community. You want to gamify ideation. You want to gamify, the ranking or voting dynamics, of that bubble ups the good ideas in the community. So those are all different kind of actions that for different purpose that you could gamify. So it depends on what the goal that you want in the first place. Well, gamification is definitely not in. It's a lot of people see that. People confuse that it's actually building a game on top of some existing process, and that's actually not true. Those are not gamifications, and gamification is really good at getting people to start to do something, right? They're a way to get people. I like to always say that gamification won't solve your business problem if your business or if your product or service don't provide value for customers, right? Gamification may get them to start trying it, and they're going to realize that that's not valuable, and they're going to quit, right? It's not going to work. So if your product and service indeed provides value for your customers, then gamification is a good way to get them to start it and try it. And once they realize that value, then they will continue to use, and then use this product and service, and gamification become a secondary reinforcement system. That kind of reassures the value that they're getting from the service and product they're using. So, for example, in the community, right? Some people may get excited, about answering questions or helping other people, create ideas because of the points and badges they earn initially, right? But after a while, that's not going to be the main reason anymore. After a while, they're going to say, "Oh, wow, I can make a difference. My idea actually get implemented. My answer has been viewed 6,000 times. And I solve, this tough problem that even the company engineer couldn't solve, right? So that's they create value, right, while participating. So we gamify community participation, right? So they start participating, but while they participate, they generate value, right? And then that value keep them continue going. And then the points and badges is essentially a reinforcement system after that. So. First question is, right, you ask what action do you want the user to do, right? So let's say, for example, sharing, right, spreading the word of mouth, right? Then if sharing is what you want to gamify, right, then you want to have 3 factors. You want to have the motivation for them to take the action. You want to give them the ability so they could take the action easily, and you want to trigger them, right? So I would say, the first step is to create some kind of a rank and reputation system around sharing. So you could say that you are the maven, or you are the once you share like with certain friends or so. You also have to do a lot with the analytics behind it, right? I mean, because when you do this in the wrong way, right, it's very easy for people to game the system. Oh, if you want to motivate sharing, I just randomly blast out to everyone. I could share to the same person 1,000 times. That's not not very good either. You actually have to be counterproductive, and you want to track how many unique individuals that this person has shared with, right? So that's a little bit harder metric to game, right? And there are ways to kind of design metrics and analytics around gamification that makes it less resistant to less prone, more resistant to gaming, right, or cheating behavior. So I think that's so providing that points and badges around the sharing, right, and you track that with analytics behind. And so you know how to reward them. So that provides a motivation for them to take the action, right? Second, you want to give them the ability to do it. So make it simple, right? Make things very, very simple to do. One click, and you could share to you see all the friends that you could potentially share with, and then you just go and click, and then it goes out. Right? So that make it simple for people to share, right? And then when you see a piece of great content, offer a trigger, right? And then that trigger basically is a call to action. Okay, now you could, do you like to share this? Would you like to share this to your certain network? Something like that. Once you have those 3 components all converge, the art of it is really to how do you design the platform such that all the motivation, the ability, and the trigger all converge at the same time. Right? When you have that, then people are very likely to take action. And predictably so, yeah. I mean, gamification is definitely a lot of, it requires you to iterate and find out what works and what doesn't work. Gamification is a heavily metric and data-driven methodology because you have to track everything. You have to track all the user behavior. You need to see what work and what didn't work, what actually drive them to take the action, what didn't. Is this motivation enough? Is this motivation? There's too big of a gap between this level and the next level. So people get frustrated. They stop participating. Right. So you need to adjust that gap so it's closer to, so they give them the next badge or next level at the right time, so they feel accomplished rather than feel. I'll never get there, or like they feel lose interest. Or maybe if you give them too frequently, right? If you give them too frequently, they say, that's kind of too easy. It's kind of starting to get boring, Then they're going to leave too. So it's an iterative process, right? So I don't think it requires a PhD or anything to do this, but I mean it certainly helped have the experimental mindset. I think that's very helpful. Yeah, there are lots of examples of gamification that didn't work. Just like Lyle mentioned yesterday that games are very hard to design. And they're one out of thousands of games become popular, become successful, right? So there are definitely failures. I would say that few. I would say like require kind of ingredient. They're having them doesn't guarantee you to be successful because but without these, most likely you won't be able to be succeed. Right? So one is the understanding of good understanding of the action that you're trying to drive, right? And then the anticipation of the unintended like outcome. Sometimes when you want to, for example, like some examples I've seen, like some people design some kind of a game that they not sort of it's kind of gamification of a little kind of display on your dashboard, on your driving dashboard, that kind of shows that if you drive in a more energy saving way, that save gas, then it grows into a beautiful flower and plant. If you drive kind of slam on your brake a lot and stuff like that, then it uses a lot of gas and you increase your carbon footprint, and it kind of stepped on the plant. The plant wither and die. So it's an interesting idea, and it does change human behavior. Right? People start to drive more fuel efficiently, right? But then one of the unintended consequences is that people start skipping red lights, because they feel that if they don't step on the brake, so these are some of the kind of you want to drive the action, but you kind of drive it too much in a way that so I think that's you have to understand the action that you're trying to drive and anticipate for these kind of unintended consequences. And so that's one thing. Two is data, right? Analytic. You have to track everything the user do and be able to reward people fairly, right? And if gamification, one of the things that makes games great is there are explicit rules, and you play by these rules, and the rules are enforced, right? And part of the reason that life is in some way is a game, right? It's like at work and the school, they all kind of you could think of it as a big game, right? But they're a game that's poorly designed, and the rules are not strictly enforced. There are holes that people could game the system, right? So therefore it becomes, that's why Jay McGonigal said reality is broken, right? To go in this game world where the rules are kind of still in place. So that's all comes from analytics and data, right? And you have to track all the behavior and understand all the behavior and reward people fairly for the behavior that's desirable, right? And design a system that's not easily cheat by game by the user. So it remains at least it only requires a few people to kind of game the system and cheat the system and then get into and then it destroyed the experience. Oh, how come this guy get to the top? He didn't do anything great. So and then destroys the experience for everybody else, and then a lot of people just stop playing the game. So that's another thing. And then the third thing I would say is to understand your player. That's one of the most important thing in game design and gamification, is understand what motivates your user and what they perceive as simple, right? I mean, what a lot of, I think, like engineers or game designers, spend a lot of time just to understanding their user. I think that one of the early kind of game researcher, Richard Barlow, he's actually a professor at here in UK. He identified 4 types of user, 4 types of essentially gamer personality. I mean, granted that's actually a very simplistic model, but when you have no other information, that's kind of good way to kind of understand your player, right? There's four types. There's the achiever, there's the socializers, and then there's explorers, and there's killers, right? And then each one of them are motivated by different things. Each one of them feels, can be triggered by different things, So you want to apply the trigger that's appropriate for the type of user that you're trying to get them to do things, right? So understanding your user is very, very important. So that's a very simplistic model, right? A more sophisticated model is just to do user study, right? To understand the user personas and what drive them and understand them. The danger is that the consumer will be trained in a certain way to kind of have a certain association with these type of interaction, right? What you call it doesn't matter. The consumer may not even know that you gamify their activity, right? But it's one of the things that we discussed, almost like 2 months ago at Wharton, where they invited all the thought leaders in gamification and researchers and psychologists to kind of discuss what is gamification sustainable? Is that, what's the danger? What's the, applicability in business, and all that stuff. So one of the dangers is that you could get people to into this mode where they just don't want to have anything to do with anything that's gamified, right? Once you give them back, they say, I know it. It's one of those things again, right? It's one of those things that eventually. If we give every action people take, it gives them some badge or points for it, right? Eventually, people are going to get tired. People are going to know that I know your trick, right? And right now, it's the same thing as a spam mail that you get or a pop-up ad, right? If you see something pop up, you don't even wait for it to reload. You just close it immediately. You know what that is going to do, right? So once people get to that stage, then it's a loss for everyone. Right, because people. I think there is a danger for thing to get to that point. If people do gamification wrong, right? If people just blindly slapping points and badges onto, interaction that has no meaning for the user, then when they take those actions, they say like, oh, this is not valuable to me. It just wasted my whole bunch of time, and I'm not going to do that anymore. Next time I see that thing come up, that I'm just going to disassociate anything. Or any attempt to that. So that actually makes it very hard for people to gamify anything for them subsequently, right? So that's when that happens is you lose, I lose, every lose, right? But if you do it right, then once you gamify something, and when people start participating and take the action, those action in turn generate real value, and they say, this is actually a good thing, right? Then they will see that gamification has real value, and that will continue to do it. Participating and continue gamification become a sustainable strategy, right? So that's I would say it's danger, but it's opportunity, right? The danger is that obviously people think that gamification is just points and badges, right? And that's not true, right? And if enough people do it wrong, right, then the consumer is going to be trained in a way to kind of resist this kind of movement, right? And that's bad.